Hey, what's up guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel. Just a real quick video here of something I noticed that's really interesting that's happening in the financial sector, and it's really been on my mind and on my heart, this idea of buying and selling, right? And the internet. And you know, it's kind of an obvious thing, but it just seems like there is a move happening around the world by the technocracy, if you want to call it that, to start the implementation or the crushing of the financial sector. And of course, there's still a long way to go, I think, before there is a total collapse of the entire economic system under one rule. There's too much that needs to happen before then, in my opinion. But there's always going to be world events that accelerate this process, and I think we're seeing some of that with what I want to share with you. So if you haven't been up to speed of what's going on in India, they demonetized a large amount of cash that was flowing through the Indian economy. And because India is 2/3 rural, it was mostly reliant on cash. Now, in this Bloomberg interview I'm about to share with you, there's a discussion between the hostess here and Harold Montgomery, who is the chairman and CEO of Money on Mobile, which is a text-based financial service that's used quite heavily in India, so he has inside knowledge into the Indian economy. But listen very carefully to some of the things that they have to say here.
What a time to have gotten into India, because demonetization has occurred. It has aroused a great debate in India. Critics say that Modi is out of touch with the reality in India. There are winners, like money launderers, who earn some big commissions as people try to change those large notes into bank deposits. And then there's the utterly devastated, as one Indian expert puts it, who include the laid-off day laborers and the small family farmers. Is that a legitimate criticism?
This is a sweeping policy measure, Kathleen, the like of which many people have never seen in their lives. You're talking about a single decision that affects 1.2 billion people. Are there winners and losers? Sure there are. And I think generally speaking, you got it right. The money changers made a killing on this deal. The electronic payments companies like mine are doing very well out of it because there's a drive to go digital on everything. And unfortunately, the farmers in the fields for whom commerce has come to a halt are suffering badly. Small shopkeepers who operate entirely in cash are suffering rather badly on this. Jewelry stores have really initially had a surge of business, but then businesses really collapsed for those as well. So there definitely are losers throughout the economy.
So this is the same thing that's been happening out here in the West in America as well. Farmland and just rural country being overtaken by large corporate interests. Very similar, but this is a big time because they actually pulled 500,000 rupee notes out of circulation.
Well, you know, the Reserve Bank of India released its minutes on Wednesday, and they show that one of the main reasons Governor Patel and his colleagues surprised the markets and didn't cut the key rate is because they're waiting to see the impact of demonetization on the Indian economy. They say it will be temporary. Do you agree?
The decision was only announced on November 8th, and it was a surprise to everyone, I think, including the RBI. It was a very tightly kept secret. So we're about 6 weeks or so into demonetization that ends on December 30th. At least that's the Prime Minister's edict so far. So I think the RBI is right to take a cautionary stance on this. Raising interest rates has a lot of other knock-on effects, as you might guess, and it may or may not be helpful in the case of getting over this. Will the effects be temporary? I think the effects will ripple through the economy for quite some time. You're going to have crops that rot in the fields and don't make it to market. Could that mean there's pressure on food prices later? Could it mean there are food shortages locally later? It's entirely possible. So I think the effects will ripple through the economy for at least a quarter or two.
Our Bloomberg intelligence team in India put out an interesting report that sort of backs up Governor Patel's view. Particularly, they looked at data on credit card transactions. We have a chart which shows that they have been surging. Now, credit card payments only make up about 3% of transactions. How much difference can this make?
It's a great question. There are about 20 to 25 million credit cards in India, again, for a population of 1.2 billion. So it's a very small number. So of course they accelerated during this period because for many people it was the only way you could transact at a retail level. Is it sustainable? I'm not sure we know that. We'll only know that a year from now. I tend to doubt that it's sustainable. Credit cards are quite expensive in the Indian context. The retailers don't prefer them. It's generally driven by consumer choice. So we'll see how this moves the needle on digital transactions in general, including but not limited to credit card.
Well, you have a mobile payment system,
right?
But this is a country where only 1 in 4 people has access to the internet. So how can this make up what demonetization has taken away? How can you penetrate this market?
Our system operates on SMS text messages, and we operate through over 300,000 points of presence in India, small retail locations, neighborhood convenience stores, that kind of thing. People deposit cash, it goes into our system, it becomes digital. They use text messages off a simple feature phone.
So it doesn't have to be a smartphone.
We're not internet dependent and we're not smartphone dependent. So there's not that many smartphones in India, and as you pointed out, internet penetration is quite low relative to world standards. So we think that an SMS-based system that can be operated quite simply at the street level is really the answer for moving people into digital transactions. With or without a bank account, it doesn't matter.
But the average Indian is making what, something like the U.S. equivalent of $4 a day. How much are you charging them? Actually, you're not. I don't understand. How does the business model work? How do you make money ultimately?
Interestingly, the less money you make, the more what we call transaction intensive you are, the more frequently you transact. The trade-off is these are very small numbers. You may have seen retailers who say no credit card under $10, right? And that's because the processing fees are higher than the profit margin on the transaction. That's not true in our case. We charge a very small amount, typically funded by the merchant. So for mobile phone recharge, for example, prepaid mobile phone, we're paid a percentage by the mobile phone company, and we use that. It's actually free to the consumer. So they're very small transactions, but we do a lot of them, and we get a percentage on almost everything that goes through our pipe. Our company is a microcap company traded in the United States, and I think the awareness of the Indian situation in the U.S. is relatively low. Most U.S. investors have been focused on China. The attention is just now turning to India, and the demonetization is a very unusual and rare event that Americans are having a little trouble grasping. It does represent a giant growth opportunity for our company, however.
So does this portend, this demonetization by Prime Minister Modi, a global trend? Is that where the world is heading?
Interestingly, I think it probably does. You may have seen a move that happened in Venezuela where the government demonetized the 100 Bolivar note. I think they had their own motivations for doing that. I think you may see other governments, even the United States government has talked about taking the $100 bill out of circulation because typically it's not used in everyday commerce. It's generally a reservoir of value for illegal trade.
How about the Indian government? Are they going to continue this drive towards pushing everybody towards digital, towards mobile?
I do think so. The Indian government's made a number of infrastructure investments around a universal bill payment system, a universal account clearing system that we operate with as well and distribute on their behalf. So I think this is absolutely a long-term move toward digital transactions and taking cash out of the economy.
So this is starting to happen around the world, and there is a clear digitization of global economies. This Reuters article basically reflects the same sentiment here. Pain before gain for Indian banks after Modi's cash gamble. And it's definitely destabilizing India, but it's forcing everybody to go digital very quickly. And I want to share with you this story that I found on eMarketer.com. It just broke on the 21st of December 2016. PayPal files copyright suit against India's digital payment provider Paytm or Paytm. Now, isn't that interesting that they demonetize large amounts of cash? I believe one statistic said 86% of the cash that is being used is demonetized. And then, so everybody's forced to go digital. Right in that moment, PayPal sues one of the leading digital payment services in India. And it says here in the article, Paytm or Paytm has been one of the rare benefactors of demonetization, a surprise move by the government on November 8th that made two commonly used denominations of cash unrecognized as legal tender. And then it says here, Paytm's main advantage over both domestic competitors and Western companies like PayPal resides in its close relationship with internet service giant Alibaba. The Chinese company, along with its financial technology affiliate Ant Financial, owns a 40% stake in 197 Communications, Paytm's parent company. So it's all tied together here. And for PayPal to move into that space is very interesting because there is a coming corporate economic war, it seems, between the East and West. And I won't get into detail here, but basically there are equivalents in China of major websites that we have out here. For example, we have Amazon.com. They have JD.com. We have eBay, right? And they have Alibaba, which again is an affiliate with this Paytm, and eBay is affiliate with PayPal, even though they split officially. I think that was tactical. Isn't it interesting that PayPal would go after the company that is affiliated with Alibaba because PayPal and eBay are probably trying to move into that space that Alibaba controls out in China. Then you have Google and they have Baidu. We have Facebook, they have Tencent. We have Uber, they have Didi, which, interestingly enough, $1 billion was invested from Apple. Yes, Apple is investing money into a Chinese company over any American company. And then you have the Tesla SpaceX angle of it with artificial intelligence with Elon Musk and all that. And they have Cheetah Robotics, which is supposed to be the artificial intelligence company to disseminate that into the Chinese market. So there is this clear economic tech war that's about to take place. And if you look at the last video that I made, I mentioned Zoltan Istvan, who is the presidential candidate for the Transhumanist Party. He said that he supports Donald Trump because his main thing is science, and that Trump will be good for science if he really wants to make America great again, and that he'll have to beat China because China is doing amazing things in science and tech. So the setup is there as well, and that's where this is all headed, including the corporate technical merging that's going to happen. Basically, one company is going to overtake the other. It's a war. It's all set up. It's all pawns in the bigger scheme. And in that process, again, the fourth industrial revolution that's going to take place where more infrastructure will be built. The one thing I'm interested to see is space mining. You know, this was a big deal at the Davos conference this last year, and there was a guy that was all amped about space mining. Given the sort of view that many people hold of the flat earth, it's going to be interesting to see what they can produce when they actually claim that they went on a comet or an asteroid and mined it and brought it back to earth to build stuff. You know, it's just one of those things where I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen there. But in essence, the one-up mentality is going to be the thing that's going to progress where we are now into this next phase of technological development in a civilization that's going to seem to be growing and expanding and quote-unquote evolving. And that's the big push here that's going to happen. This idea of human evolution is being pumped by the Pope, and him calling the Big Bang and evolution as absolutely fact. He also stated that divine beings are real in the same presentation. And so he's acting as a bridge, it seems, between science and religion, saying that, oh yeah, evolution and the Big Bang, that's all real, but there are also gods and ascended beings. Very interesting. And to tie in the UFO thing, because I always have to go there in some of these discussions, Pope Francis is scheduled to visit Fatima in May of 2017 to honor the 100th anniversary of the Marian apparition of Fatima, which basically was a UFO sighting. And if you actually study the topic and look into it, one of the descriptions from an eyewitness account at the event, because there were apparently 70,000 people who saw this event, surrounding the story of 3 girls who had a vision of Mary, and Mary told the girls, you know, come to this place at this time and we will arrive. And they were really late, but this is what the people saw. Eyewitness account, quote, "The sun appeared as a disc of brilliant silver, a weird disc that turns rapidly on its own axis while casting off beams of light in all directions. Shafts of red light shot out of the rim of the sun and colored the clouds, the earth, the trees, and the people. Then shafts of violet, blue, yellow, and other colors followed in succession." Now remember, this happened in 1917, October 13th. So this was before flying saucer was in the public vernacular. Not to mention, this is down in Portugal. And this whole thing with advanced technologies, or this quote-unquote alien presence, is so fascinating because of what Dr. Stephen Greer is out there pumping again, you know, saying that there's an elite faction that have high-level technology, and I've actually maintained that point as well, in terms of a rogue group that is above the law that seems to have this technology. And there's all these rumors about Blue Beam being deployed before Trump takes office. We don't know. We'll have to see, but I doubt it. I think they're going to wait a little bit longer. There's more things to be built here. There's more infrastructure that needs to be created to actually harness the entire world. But things are moving rapidly. Stay vigilant, stay sober-minded, stay close to the Word of God, because that's going to be your comfort throughout all of this. I know it's kind of crazy and it sounds scary, but you know, I'm not too worried personally. I can still sleep at night because I know the truth, which is in Jesus Christ. So have an awesome day. God bless.